Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our YALDA webinar, titled Justice for Africans and People of African Descent Truth Reparations. My name is Suad Kashlu Tatia. I am from Libya, youth and trainer, and also representative at WFF 2025. I also serve as a proud member of YALDA multimedia writing team. It's truly an honor to be your moderator today. First, we will be to take for one minute to etiquette for the webinar. Okay? Etiquette webinar. Everyone, please read carefully, and I will be reading for all. When you enter, okay, to the webinar, make sure to you're unmute, okay, everyone. Number 2, remind to mute throughout you have to talk. Number 3, ensure your camera is off. It should be off. Type your question or comments in the chat box. Only your name and country. Everyone can write your name and your country in the chat box. Okay, after that, those who questions or comments are selected will be asked to unmute and speak. If you are asked to speak, you must introduce yourself by name and country only. Please, and then repeat the question or comment you type it in the chat box. Now, we will talk about the webinar. The webinar talk about justice for Africans, okay, of people, Africans, descends, truth, reputations. You know, the history of Africa is not today or yesterday. It's a long history and a old history. Okay, we will be talk about it today. Everyone, now we will be to talk about Africa Day reminds us of our shared history because we all African, we all share the same history. Okay, we have today we must be remember the justice and not just about the past. We are not talk only about the past. It is about correction ongoing for inequalities caused by system racism and colonialism. It's already you should be talking about. You know, African past. A lot things happened to African people from inequality about the skin, about the color of the skin, and our history must be going on. Okay, already reputations go behind money. They include truth, telling, restoring, stalling, culture. Already you have a lot changes for our content. This is them of the African Agenda in 2063 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially for SDG 10 and SDG 16, most importantly, in school young people who are nearly 60% of Africa's population to lead the way through activism, education, and invitation. Today, we are joined by powerful voices from across the continent. The African continent explore what reparative just really means and how young Africans can drive this agenda forward. Let's begin to introduce our speaker today. The first one, Mr. Said Sofo Hassan, President of AFCFTA Young Interpreting Foundations, okay, from Ghana. The second one, Hofista Rinse Coffee. Please, anyone, I will be to say the name right, you can correct after, okay? It's from Kota. Also, we have the third speaker, Ajhari Lari from Ghana. Meris Dishoema, okay, from Ethiopia. And George Panda from Malawi, okay? This is our speakers for today. Oh, I'm sorry, Juliana Matus from Kenya. Overall question, what does meaningful reparations look like for Africans and people of African descent? And how can we ensure that justice is distributive rather than symbolic? Okay, this is overall question. The speaker first one is Seta Sofo Hassan. You can unmute yourself and
Hello, good evening, everyone.
good evening.
Yes, my name is Chief Sita Sofo Hisan. I'm speaking to you from Ivory Coast, Abidjan, to be specific, but I'm from Ghana. I didn't actually get a question because I'm struggling with some connection issues here. Thank you.
There's no problem. Back to the question in the screen, please. You cannot say it right now?
Hello.
Hello, you cannot say it right now? The question on the screen.
Yeah. Okay. So if I get you clearly, you ask him what does meaningful reparation look like for Africans and the people of African descent, and how can we ensure the justice in restoration rather than symbolic? Is that correct?
Correct.
Good. So I am Prince Sita Sofo Hisan, or Chief Sita Sofo Hisan. I'm the president of the FCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation. Thank you very much, YALDA and the organizers of this event, for giving me an opportunity to speak at today's event. President John Dramani Mahama happens to be the president of the Republic of Ghana. He has been chosen as the AU ambassador for this year's theme, powerfully crafted by the African Union on reparation. So on the AU Day, he made a statement, and I quote, "Reparations are not about financial compensations. They are about acknowledging the profound and enduring damage inflicted upon our people," unquote. For African youth, I'm going to speak more from my perspective of working with African youth, working with the youth of Africa, and my experiences as well. For African youth, meaningful reparation means more than just compensation. We demand fair access, structural justice, and sustained opportunity. So at AFIF, we've seen first-hand impact, the impact of systematic injustice on our African youth. So what does meaningful reparation actually look like? What does it look like? True reparation must be transformative, not tokenistic. They should educate with purpose, reform education systems to decolonize knowledge and equip youth for the future. Invest in youth entrepreneurship, seed innovation, support SMEs, and foster Pan-African trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the catalyst to achievement of the AU Agenda 2063. Redirect wealth. That means that channel resources into youth-led programs and organizations like the FCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation. Restore cultural dignity. return looted African heritage from colonial institutions and museums abroad, ensure access to capital and trade. Reparations should include trade justice and tools for self-reliance. As we move forward in this discussion, all of us should remember that reparations are not just about compensation. They are about restoring dignity, restoring the power and the potential of the African. So this is what I have to say on what meaningful reparation looks like to an African young entrepreneur. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. Okay. The next speaker who want to answer the question, please. Okay. Kofia, unmute yourself, please. Okay, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Complete.
Okay, all right. So I'm Ufwe Renes Kofi from Côte d'Ivoire, but currently I'm in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
Nice dress.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm a journalist and I'm a CEO of my own company, Renesque. So what does meaningful reparation looks like for Africans and people of African descent? And how can we ensure that justice is restorative rather than symbolic? I can say, for me, reparation tend to be multiple dimensional and community rooted. So it is not just financial reparation. It should be structural reparation to rebalance power, restore dignity, and build equitable opportunities through different initiatives that align with our goals. I can say that, for example, we should structure and reform the global financial trade system that perpetuates economic dependence. We should cancel the debt for African nations that start during the colonization till now, protect African lands. Also, we should repair the woods through educational justice. We should invest in decolonization education system that reflects African histories, language, and innovation. We should create the youth-led reparation commission. We should train young leaders how to be a policy makers, how to be a game changer in Africa. We should repair also through economical and wealth redistribution. We should invest directly in Black and African-owned enterprises and infrastructure. Also, I cannot forget the cultural and psychological reparation. The people should recognize globally the harms of colonization. Excuse me. People should recognize the harms, the wounds of colonization and slavery through formal technologies, public education, we did something bad to African people. It should be public. They should support our spirituality, our African spirituality and languages and our tradition. I think by this way, we should feel we will feel better as African, that everyone recognize that publicly the colonization creates something deep inside of African descendants and African from generation to generation. This is what I can say right now, to say what I feel as African, as Ivorian. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kofi. Thanks about your emotional words. Thanks a lot. The second speaker, okay, Ajhari Larry. Are you with us? Ajhari?
Yes, I'm with you, Swat.
You're welcome. So please, you can give an explanation about the question.
Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
I'm Ijera Larry. I'm from Ghana. I am a journalist by training. I'm a farmer as well. I am an entrepreneur, and I am the executive director of Inc. Ghana organization. By that, I am a civic leader. And
Great. I want to make a
think-
note, please, for this webinar. I like it, a point for today. A lot of people here wearing a traditional clothes.
Thank you.
And before you, Kefia, it's also wearing the traditional clothes. It's good now for the day, for African days. We are
Sure.
proud about it. It's a kind
Thank
of
you
the
very much.
culture. You're welcome.
Thank you. So from your introduction of the session, the webinar, and Sita's explanation of what reparation should look like and what it is, coming to Hufue's submission, it is clear that reparation is actually about repairing. It's ensuring that the continent is restored to the way it was before, such that it can transform. And so if I am going to summarize it, I would simply say reparation should look like the total liberation of the African continent and the African people, both in Africa and outside Africa. Because when you look at the theme, it is dealing with Africa and people of African descent, which is something that goes deep into the fabric of our lives, not only presently, but it starts historically, and it measures our future, how our future should be. If we look at the African Union, which started as the Organization of African Unity some 62 years or so ago, the whole idea of it was to ensure that the African is liberated. And so when I say the total liberation of the continent, I'm talking about sovereignty in our geography, sovereignty in our decision making, such that African states do not have to feel dependent or coerced by other countries, so-called world powers, to make certain decisions that inure to the benefit of those countries. And so to me, it is quite clear that reparation must look like that the African continent must be totally liberated. If there is even a limitation in terms of our liberation, then there is no reparation. Of course, there are the aspects of admission or admitting that Africa has over 5 centuries been deprived of the opportunity to develop on its own through slavery and then colonialism. But one aspect of it that we seem to leave out is neocolonialism, because after we started gaining independence, the then colonial powers refused to stop exploiting Africa, and we are still undergoing that. And so to actually have to experience reparation, neocolonialism must also be done away with.
Thanks a lot, Azhari.
Ijara.
Ijara, I'm so sorry. Okay. Now we have Toshma. Are you with us?
Hello?
Hello.
Is my voice audible?
Very clear. Go on.
Okay, thank you. So, reparations not just as a symbolic, but also involve the tangible actions or resources that aimed at repairing the harm caused by the historical or the ongoing injustices. This might include, the first one is the financial compensation, which is the direct payment for the victims, and also funds for education, housing, or the business grants for the affected communities affected by the slavery in the people. And the second one is the restitutions of the property or the land, which is returning the stolen lands, and also compensating for the destroyed properties. And the main and the third one is the institutional and the policy change, which involves reforming in the laws that can impact the inequality that's coming from the discriminatory policing, the housing policies, and the like, and also investment in the infrastructure, which is building the better schools or providing the better education for the for in order to compensate for this. So basically, this is the main reparations involve actions rather than just symbolic. So others may have explained better. So I guess this is it. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. The next speaker. Judge Panda, are you with us?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Judge.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. Sorry, we don't have electricity this side, but
We
I
can
hope
hear you very well. Judge.
Okay. So I cannot start my video because the host has disabled it. So otherwise, back to the question.
Judge.
Yes, can you hear me, right?
We can complete. Go on.
Okay, fine. Okay, so basically,
We will back for the question.
Yeah, so to respond to the question, I like George Aite. George Aite once said, "The African state cannot deliver justice. It is the very instrument of plunder that needs dismantling." So back to the question: what does true reparations? What are they supposed to look like? So these things, they are supposed to come through voluntary institutions, reinstitution from guilty institutions, not the government coercion that merely reshuffles stolen wealth. The most powerful repair would be ending in neocolonial systems, crushing trade barriers, flat currency manipulation, and we have the colonialist regulations that still strangle African prosperity. ultimately, I myself am Judge Banda. I'm a libertarian, so I value much, libertarian principles. So ultimately, libertarian comes from property rights and free markets, not state-managed redistribution schemes that perpetuate, dependency. So if we are to embrace, free markets, property rights, issues to do with free markets started way back before the colonialism. We had barter trade, where you could trade with someone from, from Nigeria, whether you are from maybe somebody from Tanzania, someone from Kenya. Our forefathers used to meet somewhere and do trade, but these people from out, they came and put some borders, some restrictions. So if we are to crush those things, I think, true reparations will prevail. Thank you so much.
Great, Mr. Judge. Great job. The next speaker, Julian. Julian, can you hear me? Hello, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
You
It
look
seems
nice.
Thank you. It seems like I'm the only one that's not on African wear, but I assure you I'm an African, I'm a Kenyan, taking this call from Nairobi, Kenya.
Nice
So
to meet
yeah,
you.
sure. I am Julian Muthusi, a Young African Leaders Initiative Fellow 2019. I have served in different institutions and the community. And currently, I'm an advocate for climate change, serving as the country lead for Lima, a company that is focusing on climate change and renewable energy. So when Judge Banda was talking about lack of electricity in Malawi, let's have a side chat. We talk about reliable energy in Malawi.
Yes,
So
great.
back to the topic. I echo the words of Dr. Hilary Brown at the UN Permanent Forum on African Descent, that Africa was under siege. And you agree with me, all of you, agree with me, really, for the longest period as Africans, we experienced the worst forms of human injustice, for 4 good centuries, from 16th century to 19th century. And I myself, I had never thought about reparations actually until recently. I went granular into our history as Africans. Right now, I'm reading a book, Long Walk to Freedom, by Nelson Mandela. And I thought to myself, really, did we have to go through all these hardships? Do we have to go through this worst form of, injustices, slavery, colonialism, apartheid, systemic discrimination, and all those injustices just to gain independence, or at least, get modern civilization? It is not justifiable. You agree with me? It is not justifiable. It is not at all, at all. And looking at history, I would like us to reflect on this. Nelson Mandela died the other day, just the other day, in 2013, December of 2013. Apartheid ended in South Africa in 1994. It was just the other day. Most of the countries in Africa gained their independence from 1950s to 1990s, with, I think, Eritrea and Namibia being the latest, 1993 and 1990s. It was just the other day. It was not long time ago. And I'm a Kenyan. We gained our independence in 1963. That is the time of our mothers and fathers. We have somehow experienced this either directly or indirectly. And some of the people in Africa usually say the idea of reparations is a controversial idea. But I am afraid that this can lead to historical amnesia, whereby, people forget about history. People forget about all these injustices, and then history repeats itself. So we need now, it is the high time now we have these meaningful reparations. We continue to face or experience this in the ripple effects of these injustices. Racism, xenophobia, economic inequalities, they all stem from the injustices that we faced as Africans. And it is the high time we rise up as Africa. We, speak with one voice, be united, and have meaningful reparations. And what does it mean? It is not about, as some of you have said, it is not about only financial compensation. It is about, addressing the fundamental injustices and creating that just, equitable, and dignified future for all of us. And when we are talking about restorative justice, the restorative justice is all about, repairing the harm, repairing that past harm, and then holding everyone accountable. We need to confront the uncomfortable truth. We need to get back to get back to a meaningful dialogue. We hold everyone accountable, not only the states. Remember also, there are institutions, there are corporations, there are even religious organizations that were used to propagate slavery and colonialism. We need to hold everyone accountable. We need to have meaningful dialogue and have long-term commitments. Remember, reparations, it is not a one-off event. It is a long process of justice. It is a long process of healing. And there needs to be a long-term commitment by the people, by the organizations, by the states that committed all these atrocities. And we, as Africans, we need to unite. We need to speak with one voice and address what I call effectiveness paradox. Effectiveness paradox is, recognizing that these atrocities, these inequalities that necessitate reparations can also be the barriers to effective implementation. So what do we need to do as Africans? We need to come up with a structured way of designing policies that address all these reparations and seek justice. Lastly, I'm just calling for unity. We need to be unified as Africans. We need to seek justice. We need to speak with one voice, not stating or claiming that reparations is a controversial idea. No, these atrocities were committed. They continue to affect us, and we need to stand tall and be committed to this cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Great, great. Be one voice, be united. Great. Thank you a lot, Julian. Now we will be for the speaker questioners. Okay. Mr. Adri Lori, Ashari Lori. Are you with us? Ashara, Ashari?
Yes, I am, Swat.
Yeah.
Ijara. I'll mention it too.
Ijara
Don't worry.
Lori.
I'm sure by
Okay.
the time we are done with this conversation, you would be used to it.
I will be save your name by my heart. Okay. Now your speaker question, please. Everyone answer maximum 3 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
The question: how are young people leading the reputations movement, and what needs to happen for their efforts to influence public policy?
It's a tough one. What young people are doing. Firstly, this is one of the things young people are doing, engaging in such conversations, and I think YALDA has led the way in a wonderful form, holding such fora, coming up with initiatives that would inure to the benefit of young Africans in terms of reparations from what most people have said. And I would love to highlight what some individuals are doing on social media, because this is the main medium. New media has given us the opportunity to carry the torch that our forebears carried in terms of Pan-Africanism and ensuring that the reparation that is being advocated for would happen. So if we take someone like Wodemaya, it is my hope that most of us know Wodemaya. Wodemaya is a social media influencer. He's a YouTuber who travels mostly and showcases parts of different countries, especially in Africa. And what he does is he projects the African image. Mind you, in the reparations movement, the African personality has to be projected. And so what some of the speakers said earlier about the psychological impacts that slavery, colonialism, and neo-colonialism have had on Africans need to be worked on. In order to do that, we must project the African in a bright light. We must not accept the narrative of the perpetrators of Africa's exploitation, such that the African has been projected as an inferior personality, that the African is not capable of managing his own affairs. As Kwame Nkrumah said before, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs, and that has to be manifested. If it is happening in so many African countries, most of us do not travel across Africa. Myself, I've traveled to only 6 African countries in my lifetime out of 54 states that are part of the AU. I have only visited 6, which is quite a little. And so if we are to develop the genuine passion and take action to kind of move for the policies that would unite the continent and liberate movements across the continent, we need to see what's happening in other countries. And I think someone like Wodemaya, through new media, is projecting that wonderfully. Then it's interesting that there's no Nigerian speaker on the webinar, but if you take Nigeria, for instance, we look at someone like Very Dark Man, who is also a social media influencer, using social media to advocate, using social media for activism to mobilize youth and ensure that they affect policy. So these are examples of individuals who are doing some certain things that are very important. And because reparation has to do with repairing a lot, especially on the economic side, we must make sure Africans must own the factors of production, i.e. the land and capital. We take South Africa as an example, where there is a movement, the economic freedom fighters. We look at Julius Malema, the Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. They have come up with a means of ensuring that the conversation about expropriation of land today cannot be neglected in South Africa, such that when the president of South Africa visited the US, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, mentioned it. And so it is a conversation that can no longer be hidden. It means action must be taken on it. So these are people who are doing certain things. And I feel some of us can do more because they are doing it from their perspectives. Like Judge said, I'm a libertarian as well, and I am not big on big government controlling everything. And so if the view of about expropriation of land in South Africa being led by people like Julius Malema is focusing on big government controlling everything, how do other views like mine and Judge's become propagated and projected to the extent that people can weigh and buy into it, because this reparations movement cannot be left to one group alone. It must be a conversation. There must be JoJo, and we would reach a consensus that benefits most of us. And so it seems I've shot beyond my 3 minutes, but preliminarily to answer that question, because there's a lot to say about it, but this is what I can say so far.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Azhari. The next speaker, Kofi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we have a question for you. You can read the question?
Please, can you read it for me? Thank you.
How can entrepreneurship contribute to economic reputations and bring development to historically marginalized communities?
Thank you so much. I think for me, African entrepreneurs are the key agents in reshaping our future, African future. Through supporting African entrepreneurs can help to heal historical wounds, close opportunities gaps, build self-sufficient economies. What can I say about this one? First of all, we should build local industry that reduce dependence on Western imports. When you take African country, a lot of our economic, the percentage of our economic belongs to foreigners. Most of them belongs to foreigners, not from locals. So we should reshape everything. We should build local industry that reduce our dependence from Western. Secondly, we should innovate. We should innovate in our technology locally to resolve our local issues. For example, agriculture tech for food sovereignty. I will take my country example. Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast is the first producer of cocoa in the world. But we cannot transform it. We cannot transform it, this cocoa. From our first president, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, until now, it doesn't make sense. We are the first in Africa also produce cashew nuts. But when you take the information about the world, Vietnam, India, they are the first one who sell the finished product about cashew nuts. Doesn't make sense again. Right now in my country, we face a big problem about food or agriculture. We import rice. We have a land in Africa, in Ivory Coast. We have water. We have the ecosystem. We have everything to produce the rice. But India said, I cannot sell my rice. We have rice problem in Côte d'Ivoire. It doesn't make sense. It should stop right now. As we want to repair, our development, our economic, we should reshape everything. So in that case, entrepreneurship can help to reshape our future, our next generation. The second one, I can say we should decolonize entrepreneurship. And this is the most important for me. We should create business models rooted in African values. Today, when Africans want to create their own company, we copy everything from Western. But we should look for our tradition, our value, our culture, our older generation did things. We can take action, or we can take advice, we can take lesson from them, and add our technology from our generation and make things more better. This is very important. We should create our business model rooted in Africans' value, not Western value. That by this way we can empower marginalizing communities in Africa. I will take my own example as a designer. When I have my women from different regions in Côte d'Ivoire, when I have to launch new collection of my textile, I have to travel to go to them, this rural community. I talk to them, I exchange idea with them, I learn from them, they learn from me. This is what we have to create to repair or to heal our roots from this colonization. Also, we should provide access to capital through community banks. Let's talk about the diaspora. Diaspora should put the effort together, create a diaspora or African bank that can be easily used for African entrepreneurship. And then those who haven't, how can I say it in English? Those who they don't know how to read, how to write. The rural people, I can say, the rural people. Then they are also entrepreneurs. So don't we should help them through this diaspora or Africans banks for the businesses, and then we can reshape our economic in Africa. One more important thing it is to rebuilding ecosystem. We should rebuild our ecosystem, and we can use the young African entrepreneur to do that. I think I trust and I have confidence in young African entrepreneur in this generation, that they can revitalize agriculture, they can revitalize biodiversity, they can champion green transition, they can do a lot. So what we have to do, it is to go back to our culture, our tradition. We have to learn, we have to exchange knowledge with our old generation, with this new generation. We don't need to wait for someone else to come and to do things for us. We should take action. We should do things by ourselves. We have everything we need to do that, to reshape our economic in Africa. We have everything. By God's grace, we have everything. Everything. Even the money we take, a lot of, because I'm entrepreneur, I know this problem. A lot of entrepreneurs will tell you, I don't have money to start. And then our diaspora, if you take diaspora, African diaspora, who has more money, more than African diaspora, if they put their money together to create a bank, to create a diaspora investment, who can have more money than them? Just take the MoneyGram transaction, Western Union transaction per day, per week, per month, per year, from African who live in Western America or Europe or Asia. So I think it is time to take action. It is time to stop talking too much. It is time to stop waiting for someone to come and heal us. It is time for us to take action, to heal ourselves, to reshape our future, to reshape everything economically. Thank you.
Great. I like it, a sentence you say, our tradition and culture for a new generation. Okay, the next speaker. Judge Panda, where are you? Judge?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I
Judge,
hope I'm
please
audible.
answer in 3 minutes, okay? Take care about the time. I don't like to
Okay.
keep it mute.
All right. So I hope I'm audible enough.
Reputations.
All right. So this is Judge Banda. Basically, yeah. So I hope I'm audible enough. So to respond to the question that I've been asked, sorry, we don't have electricity here. So yeah. Okay. So number one, legal. Number one. So what are legal or diplomatic measures? What legal or diplomatic measures can African countries adopt to strengthen the push for global reparations? Basically, I myself am a libertarian, so I'll be responding based on the libertarian, perspective. So I hope I'm audible enough.
Come on.
Yes,
Okay, so number one, what we really need to do, we need to do voluntary reinstitution over cohesive redistribution. True justice cannot be achieved through state mandated reparations. Basically, these state mandated reparations, which inherently rely on cohesion and further entrench government overreach. As Ijara was articulating, we don't, for Africans, to develop, or to reparate or to restore. We don't need cohesion, but we need free will, individual liberty. Instead, we need to repair. Meaningful repair must come from voluntary actions by those directly responsible for historical injustices. For example, I'll give an example of South Africa. Some corporations like the DBS, they voluntarily transferred their shares, or invested in communities that were harmed by the apartheid by that time. While imperfect, such market-driven efforts, I'll quote George Aite. George Aite is one of the individuals that I like most. Basically, currently, I am reading a book. This one, it's African Social and Economic Development. It's a very book that was written by him. So he extended this logic, arguing that African wealth sitting in Western banks should be retained through public pressure and moral persuasion, not government seizure. Therefore, we need to prioritize much individual and institutional accountability without expanding the very state machinery that often perpetuate oppression. Number two, we need to dismantle the neo-colonial economic barriers. The most powerful form of reparations, that it will entail ending systematic policies that continue to suppress African prosperity, thanks to the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is trying agreement, which is trying to bridge this gap. Yeah. For example, I myself am from Malawi. We have the Malawi dairy industry. Once a regional leader that was disseminated by the EU, butter substances and local trade restrictions, leading farmers impoverished. So we have got this libertarian scholar, we call him Franklin, and Thompson. Yeah. So these guys, they documented how protectionism and the crony regulations stifle African markets. Similarly, the U.S. cotton substances have undercut West African farmers, driving them into debt. Currently you can see with the cut of the USAID in most African countries, a clear indication that we really need to repatriate. Yeah. So rather than symbolic cash transfer, I don't know, in my country, Malawi, cash transfer, it's one of the interventions that the social work under the Ministry of Gender is trying to intervene in vulnerable, communities. So what am I driving here? So here I'm driving it, advocating for unrestricted free trade, eliminating tariffs and the subsidies that privilege Western agribusinesses over producers. Actually, I'm from Malawi. I myself, when you want to start up a business today, you want to register, it becomes a challenge, a lot of restrictions. Why? Colonialism. Our leaders, they just copy and paste Western things. Number 3, we'll talk about property rights as the foundation for prepare property rights. I'll give an example of South Africa recently. Actually, they are quite doing a good job. I think most of the land in South Africa is being owned by the whites. So the government is trying, to take other land from the whites to give it, back to its citizens. A clear indication that we saw some time back when Donald Trump, was saying, South Africa is treating the whites, something like that one. Julius Malema also once spoke about that one. A clear indication that, if we are to do that one, reparations, can be in the forefront. The other thing is reparations through liberation, not dependency. I'll give an example of, for example, the IMF debt relief for African nations typically comes to strings attached enforcing, privatization that benefits foreign investors only. But, as I like George Aite once said, Africa's real reparations lie in abolishing the flat currency system, central banking monopolies, and crony regulations that enable ongoing exploitation instead of cash
Thanks a lot,
handouts.
Mr. Judge.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks a lot. The next speaker. Jolian? Jolian, can you hear me, Jolian?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Jolian, your question: how can youth-led organizations keep the call for reputations on national and African development agendas? Go on. Please, 3 minutes to answer, okay?
Sure, I'll do my best.
I hope. Go on.
Yes, and I love the passion in the room. Yeah, and as many of the speakers have said about, colonialism, the resources, that are controlled by the foreigners. Recently, I was looking at Zambia. Actually, the copper mines are owned and controlled by the foreigners, and we need to, get back to, as Africans, on, reinstitution of the resources, the land, and anyway, getting back to my question on the youth-led organizations, what they can do to promote this call for reparations. First, it's about education and awareness. Education and awareness, because most of the people actually are not aware of the magnitude of the injustices, of the atrocities that were committed. And the youth-led organizations can create actually content that simplifies their complex history of slavery, of colonialism, of all sorts of injustices, and develop a very strong case for reparations. Also, someone stated about social media. We are in a digital era, and there needs to be, or these youth-led organizations needs to have amplified digital advocacy. For the Kenyans in the room, if they are Kenyans here in the room, you bear me witness that on Twitter, Kenyans are usually very vocal when it comes to the issues of politics and issues that are the current issues that are affecting their country. And at some point, actually, COT, which is Kenya on Twitter, was really, really popular. So youth-led organizations can actually leverage on social media, create like online petitions, hosts like virtual events to have like a wider reach, especially to the young generation, and also for the policies on the reparations. Again, there is also research and documentation. What the youth-led organizations can do is to have strategic partnerships with organizations like UN, AU, and have what we call evidence-based approach, that when they are coming up with a case for the reparation, they have evidence that really we as Africans need reparations. Also, there is oral history. There are people that have, experienced. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so there are people that have experienced this either directly or indirectly. They continue hurting, but they are silent about it. It is up to the youth-led organizations to go outside there and gather all these personal testimonies on what was done, and make sure that the historical injustices, they are the center of the narrative. The cost of the human injustice is the center of all this narrative. It needs to be heard that we need reparations as Africa, and the youth voices can be heard. Again, it's about policy making and engagement. They can be integrated in policy making by organizations like AU, UN, international community, international organizations that are involved in policy making, and insist. We as youth or youth-led organizations can insist on a seat or a seat discussion on the issues of reparations, and be involved in the policy making when that is drafted. Lastly, is on these youth-led organizations really need to acknowledge that reparations is not a one-time event. There needs to be a long-term commitment and persistence, and that there needs to be long-term strategy, and making sure that reparation conversation is active and relevant, even in the face of resistance and like changing political priorities, because you're going to face really resistance. There are people that don't don't want reparations, and can face resistance from Western countries, from the people that committed the same. And it is up to us or the youth-led organizations to acknowledge this fact. This is not a one-time event. It is a long process of healing, of justice, of a systemic change to addressing both the past and present injustices, what most of the people have called neocolonialism, and make sure that their voices is heard, make sure that their voice is heard outside there. There are a lot of strategies that youth-led organizations can employ, but for a start, I think what I have shared really it's a starting point to seeking justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolyon. Thank you about your points, very strong points, and great answer. The next speaker, Hassan. Sita Sofo Hassan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with us.
Please answer very shortly, okay? And benefit. Your question: what steps are being taken by the African Union or governments to demand reputation, and how can African nations present a united front in this case. Go on.
Thank you very much, Swad. And
You're
then
welcome.
I think you put me in a very bad position because in Ghana we have a saying that when the elder finish bathing, then the water is automatically finished. Meaning that you made all the experts in this area to speak before me. So I don't have much to say. We are also currently at the margins of the African Development Bank's annual general meeting, of which I chair the youth and women session for this year's event. I heard one of the speakers, Yara Larry, one of my colleagues from Ghana, mentioned that you should use Udimai and Co. To spread the word. Yes, last month I invited Udimaya to ECOWAS Youth Conference in Ghana. Then back to the question, what can African Union do? How can African present a united front? African Union is actually a united front for the African governments. So I think that if the AU is up and doing, we can get some results. But I'm going to tell you how AU is going to achieve this result. Youth and women should be at the center of it. For now, anything that happens and you don't have youth participating in it, know that it's something we say it's a dead jeopardy, like it's dead on arrival. So it's time. Yesterday, in my keynote address at the Women and Youth session, which was team empowering Africa's future, which is women and youth using the AFCFTA, I mentioned that if the leaders, current government, African Union, when you tell your children that you've left them a good legacy, the best thing for you is to depart. There are so many unemployed youth across Africa. We are talking about reparations. We are talking about compensations, financial compensations, and other compensations. For me, as somebody working for entrepreneurs across Africa, we want to ensure that even if we do succeed in getting some financial compensations, how will this money be disbursed? How will the women and youth of Africa have access to these monies? In this discussion, I'm happy that YALDA is taking the lead, convening this, bringing all of us together. For me, before I just a talk shop, I will just talk about it. There's a need for us to pick up a committee to discuss this, and then we move it forward. Fortunately, African Union has started by making this year's team on reparation. And the second thing they did was that they appointed His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, which is quite influential in this African space, the president of Ghana, to be the ambassador, and he's doing a good job. Yesterday, he was at this event for the presidential session before he left for Ghana. So that's the second thing they've done. The CARICOM Reparation Commission, because this thing has to involve all the Africans in the Caribbean countries. Fortunately, last year, we went for a CARICOM event in Bahamas. Then we also did an annual general meeting of the African Export and Import Bank, Afro-Exim Bank. That is when we saw that the Africans in the diaspora and the Africans here, there's very little difference, and our challenges seem to be the same. And we believe that it's only in unity that we can succeed. The UN Forum on Peoples of African Descent has to also be involved. The African and the diaspora institution all have to be involved. Now, youth associations in Africa have to also be involved. To present a united front, we must establish a continental reparations task force with youth, academia, and policymakers involved. Develop a shared AU reparations roadmap with clear timelines and national commitments. Include youth-led institutions like our federation, AFCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation, and other similar sister organizations to be part of the decision-making in all this. We need to ensure transparency and accountability in reparations funds, which that's what I'm talking about, because we can always be used. We've seen African leaders, they've used us for power. And when they get the power, We don't see them. They don't support our situations as African youth. Doesn't change. And I'm working with a lot of entrepreneurs. Most of their challenge is capital. And that is why the African Development Bank even used capital as making Africa's capital work for Africans or Africa's development as the main theme for 2025 annual general meeting. So let us be clear. We have to mobilize through digitalization. We have to use digital advocacy, social media, and others, as some of the speakers earlier on mentioned, in amplifying the African youth voices. So let us be clear, reparation must directly benefit Africa's future. That is our youth, the young people. Jobs have to be created. And then digital infrastructure has to be in place. And then we have to ensure that education and capacity building too is done. We have to promote entrepreneurship and then trade among ourselves. As the African proverb says, I'm going to end with this. When the roots are deep, there's no reason to fear the wind. Let's deepen our roots in justice, dignity, and opportunity. So I earlier mentioned that this should not be a talk shop. The discussions should continue throughout the year. Committees have to be formed. Influential people across the continent have to be involved. And we have to continue pushing. But at the end of the day, when we get any benefit from discussing this reparation, we have to hold our leaders accountable. And we have to ensure that the youths are the major beneficiaries in all this reparation discussion that we are talking about. So I'm just going to end here. I want to thank YALDA and its partners, the African Union and others, for organizing this event. Let's put the youth first. Let's build, and the FCFT Young Entrepreneurs, we are ever ready to be part of this because we have members of about 30 countries, and then we are interested in this whole reparation thing. Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. Great job, great answers. The next speaker, Toshma, are you with us?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Is my voice audible?
Good evening again. Your question.
Good evening. So, okay.
Is the history of reparations taught or discussed in your invitations? What more can be done to educate and engage students on these issues?
Okay, thank you. So, reparations are about repairing the broken threads of our identity, which is restoring what was stolen and rebuilding a future Africans use that stand tall in the truth and also in our history. So, in order to achieve this, we must start where all the movements begin with, which is education. So, because knowledge is not only just a power, but it's the foundation of justice. So, as we all know, Ethiopia is the only country that is not colonized. So, which is the source of our deep pride as an African. But this pride has also created a blind spot, which is while other African countries teach about the winds of colonialism, our schools, mainly the educational institutions, talk about reparations rarely. So as a result, many Ethiopian students graduate without even understanding what really reparations are meaning for Africans, for African people in general. So, which is the first one is the cultural restitution, which is bringing back our stolen artifacts like the Magdala treasure, as an example. And the second one is educational justice, which is the removing the colonial biases from our textbooks and also reclaiming what is our or and also replacing this false narratives with our true history. And also the third one is the global solidarity, which is a standing movement with the CARICOM's 10-point plan, which demands not about the just money, but also African dignity. But I've heard that there are some initiatives at Addis Ababa University, which young activists are hosting debates on reparations within the framework of Pan-Africanism. But in my opinion, this is not just enough. If we really want a true transformation, we must go further and beyond this. So how do we move on from just awareness into action is the main question here. So here is the main action plan that we need to work on. The first one is we need to work on the curriculum reform, which is through collaborating with the Minister of Minister of Education in Ethiopia, so as to integrate reparation into different different um, um, different educational materials like history and civics classes. This means including the explanation of the economic exploitation of Africa beyond just slavery, which is like how resources were stolen so as to build the foreign wealth, and also highlighting the African resistance, which is including the success stories of our leaders and the movements that fought back, and also connecting the Ethiopian history into broader African struggle, which shows that even though we are not colonized, our continent's pain is our pain. So the second one is we need to work on the youth mobilization, which makes the reparation really unignorable. So we need to create like national reparation awareness weeks through where the schools, artists, activists, different communities meet for the workshops or different exhibitions, so as to create awareness based on regarding this issue, and also creating social media movements like pressuring the museums so as to return the stolen artifacts, and also creating partnership with different artists, social media influencers, so as to make reparation not just as a political issue, but as a cultural conversation. And the third and the last one is we need to work on the institutional advocacy, which is this is not just about Ethiopian fight, which we must press the African Union so as to make reparations, the education as a key part of the Agenda 2063. So I need to close up my speech with this. So will we let the reparations remain a forgotten footnote in history, or will we fight back what is rightfully ours? So the choice is ours, and let us remember the wisdom of our ancestors, which is the saying of until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero. So today we are the lions. Our history will be one of the courage, truth, and unshakable justice. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Great answers, Tashma. Okay, now we have the question and answer. Anyone have the question? I'm check the chat box. We have only one question. I think Tamara. Tamara, can you hear me right now? Tamara? Timara, you have a question? Okay, Mr. Janet, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
according me this opportunity. So
Please
I
raise
actually
your
have,
voice.
pardon?
Raise your voice a little bit, okay?
Am I audible now?
Okay, it's good now. Ask your question.
Yes, so I have two questions. So the first question is, away from the talking on how we want things to be done, what actually are we doing on the ground to ensure that we take action? And the second question is, Africa being a country or a continent rather, which depends on these Western countries who we want to hold accountable. How do we deal with situations where they threaten to cut off funding and other things because we depend on them? Yes, that's my question. And please pardon me. My name is Jonathan Munyenyembe from Zambia. I'm studying public health at the Copperbelt University, and I'm currently with the Planetary Health Alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone from the speaker can answer. The question is, raise your hand, please. Ajhari, Larry.
Okay. Thank you very much,
You're
Swat.
welcome.
That's a brilliant question from Jonathan.
Yes, very brilliant question.
In some of the submissions, I had that concern, especially when Hufwe was talking about relying on remittances from Africans in the diaspora. Recently, the American government imposed a 2.5% or 2% tax on remittances. And so it means if an African in the diaspora works in the United States and sends money to whoever here in Africa, there is a 2.5% tax on it. And it goes to strengthen Jonathan's point that it is coercive. It is putting more pressure and control upon us as Africans. And so if we are to rely on funding, one basic question which we haven't answered in this whole conversation so far is the source of funding. My brother Sofu mentioned that the African Development Bank seeks to make African capital work for Africans. What is African capital? Who owns the capital? Where is the capital coming from? And so we have a situation where our state budgets, annual budgets, are funded by foreign states, the European Union, the USAID, and others. And it puts them in a situation and position, just like the IMF and the World Bank, to state specifically how we implement those financial decisions that have to do with the funds that they are providing for us. And so one thing also which ties into a concern I had with Judge Banda's response to the legal ways through which we can attain reparation. Individuals are not subjects in public international law. When it comes to the way states relate, it is dicey to the extent that, as a general rule, individuals play no significant role. And so the state, through diplomacy, engages with other states and institutions to ensure that they can come to an agreement to influence development in various places per our specific conversation in Africa. And so the African Union has to be in a position where the African Union can raise funds on its own and implement some of these things. Like there's a concern that the AU is underfunded. The main source of funding for the AU, per what we have studied so far, is that, and I'm working on a research paper on it, that how much of the dues that the African states are supposed to pay to the AU do they pay? Do they fulfill their financial obligation to the African Union? Because if that is not the case, then we are constantly in a position where we have to rely on foreign countries to fund even the African Union. Because when we are going to negotiate with everybody, we negotiate individually. If Ghana is going, Ghana goes individually. If Cote d'Ivoire is going, Cote d'Ivoire goes individually. Can we make sure that the African Union is financially dependent enough and sustainable to be able to front for Africans? Because if you're going to transact in Europe, for instance, the European Union has rules that you have to conform to. But when it comes to Africa, are the laws or rules of the African Union binding on anybody transacting in Africa? So it is something that we have to ensure we pay particular attention to as youth. Through collaboration and these conversations, we can raise the awareness, raise the issues, advocate for policy changes that ensure that our states pay their dues, they fulfill their financial obligations to the African Union, such that when Hufei raises the concern that African entrepreneurs must be given capital, that capital can come directly of writers, Ghana Association of Writers, where we are creatives, and as creatives, we must make sure that whatever knowledge we have acquired, we are able to impart. Because in Africa, we have been taught that everything belongs to the previous generation, the current generation, and the generation yet to be born. And so, if we are to impart truly and achieve reparation as we are propagating, it shouldn't only be through curricular means. It must be through extracurricular as well. So the extracurricular could be just activism. You could organize sessions for young kids in your local community, or even interact with students in schools. Or if you can write, you write. If you can create videos, you create for them to learn
Harry.
certain things. Okay. Thank you.
It's done more than 1 minute, okay? So,
Thank you. It's all right.
you're welcome. Now we have to. Okay, okay? Now everyone, you can scan the code, code here. Okay, the next slide. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for YALDA. Everyone, you can scan the code and send the code for your friend, for your classmate, for your colleague. You can do it. Another scan code we have. Already we find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Twitter or X, Instagram, also LinkedIn. So find us on the social media, follow, comments, and put your rating in our posts, because this is will be make the page big and big. Okay, to link our voice for all the world. Next slide. Thank you for joining, everyone. And now I wanted to say I'm so sorry. I wanted to say the conclusion for the end. It's very, 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 very wonderful session with us. So happy. And now let's remember, justice is not about combinations, it's about transformation. Thank you all for being a part to this powerful conversation. Stay connected with YALDA on social media and YouTube. Now, let's begin to raise our voice for African Day. I wanna to take a screenshot with all. Everyone, can you please open your cam? Everyone, can you hear me? Open your cam, please. Everyone, who can open your cam, please? We want to take a screenshot with together and make a heart by your hands, because it is like a celebration for African Day. Everyone make a heart by your hands. Okay, it's easy. Yeah. We will be to take the screenshot with together. Okay. Latricia Toy, why you don't like to make a heart? Hi, make a heart, please. So please, everyone, great, happy African days.
Wait for me. Wait for that.
We take the screenshot. Nice to meet all. I'm Suad Kashlot. I'm leaving here.